Hey, what's up, guys? Thank you for joining me for day number 6 of my 31 Days of Horror. Today's movie is actually more of a psychological thriller slash mystery drama more than a horror, but it's always been one that comes up when talking in horror discussions, so I thought, why not? I have it on my shelf anyway. Today's movie is from 2010, directed by Martin Scorsese. The film is Shutter Island, starring Leonardo DiCaprio. It's also got Mark Ruffalo, Ben Kingsley. So yeah, I'm sure a lot of people would know this movie. Let's get into the plot for this movie before I get into my thoughts of it. So this movie takes place in the 1950s. A US Marshal, played by Leonardo DiCaprio, he's assisted by another investigator who is played by Mark Ruffalo. They show up to Shutter Island, which is an island that houses the criminally insane, and they're there to solve a mystery of a patient that went missing. But twists and turns start to happen, something sinister is going on beneath the surface, and that's pretty much the plot for this movie. I don't want to give it away because if you haven't seen this movie, it has a very, very big twist. So, going to leave it there, and let's get into my thoughts of 2010's Shutter Island. So the place I wanted to start with this review is the feel and the vibe and the atmosphere and aesthetic of this movie, because it's really fucking good. This small isolated island that is like half jungle, and then obviously it's got this asylum on there. The only way to get in is this ferry that comes like whenever it's pretty much cold, really. The waves are smashing up against the side of this island. There's a scene where it's a storm and a hurricane, but constantly throughout the movie it's looming overhead. You know that the weather here is so unpredictable. Throw in that it's also a 1950s mystery. I just love the feel and the vibe of this movie. It's so fucking cool. I'm not going to beat around the bush getting to the caliber of talent that we have in this movie. Obviously starring Leonardo DiCaprio, who's great. Mark Ruffalo, who I think is really underrated in this movie also. You got Ben Kingsley, as I also said. This movie is really, really well acted. There was an actress in this movie. She had such a familiar face, and I was trying to remember where I last seen her. She was in that movie Relic, that I did a review of not too long ago, maybe a month or so. And then obviously directed by Martin Scorsese. So you know the team working behind this movie is really talented, and it comes through, so I wasn't going to beat around the bush. This movie is really well acted. It looks great. The shots, the cinematography, everything in a technical standpoint is also really strong. So this movie does have a runtime of 132 minutes, which is obviously quite long, but I'd say for the most part you don't really feel that, and I'd probably put that down to mostly the story, because, as I said, this story is really strong and it manages to keep you on your toes because there's so many twists and turns, and you're so engaged, it's sort of hard to get tripped up on the runtime of this movie. So first of all, I really love the setup. As I said before, the location and the aesthetic is just really top notch, but you have these two US Marshals being called in to figure out this mystery. You know, someone's gone missing on this island. There's only so far you can go because they're surrounded by water. As I mentioned before, the weather is also really brutal, so where is this person? I feel like the setup is just really cool. But then it starts to get psychological, and as I said, there's twists and turns, and the mystery starts to come into light, and these two investigators start to fall into this rabbit hole, in particular Leonardo DiCaprio's character. Now, as I said, it is a long runtime, and if I do have to pick out a part where you start to kind of feel the length of the movie, I'd probably say the middle part of this movie, the second act. I feel like that's sort of just where the most information comes into play, and if you're not paying attention or switched on, that's probably where you will get tripped up. And, you know, the more you get tripped up, the more you start getting confused, and you're like, okay, you know, what's going on? And I guess that's where you can sort of start feeling the length of the movie. But if you're switched on, it's not too bad. But as I said, if I had to pick a part where it feels long, it's probably the middle, just gets a little bit trippy. But by the end, the ending of this movie is great. You know, the reveal, the twist, you know, what's actually going on. Obviously, I'm not going to spoil it, but the ending just cleans it up perfectly, and it's such a high note to finish the movie on. Now, this is a pretty notable movie. A lot of people have seen it, and it's quite popular, so I'm not going to dwell on this movie for much longer. I'm also not going to go into too much more detail with the story, because there are lots of twists and turns, and for those people that haven't seen it, you know, I would recommend just sort of going into this one and experiencing it for yourself, because for those who have seen it, they'll jump on my side. The twist in this movie is insane, and it's really well executed. It was actually interesting watching it with the point of view of knowing what's going to happen, because this was a third time watch for me. I think I've seen this movie 3 times now, and knowing what the reveal is, there are so many small details through this movie that hint at what the twist actually is. So it's not one of those ones where it comes out of nowhere and you're like, that doesn't make any sense at all. There's plenty of little Easter eggs and hints throughout this movie that, set up the reveal. And yeah, it still makes it really interesting because you're picking out all these small things and you're going, okay, that's why this means this. And I found that really interesting as well. But I'm pretty much going to sum up this review now. Yeah, really enjoyable movie. As I said, not a straight up horror, obviously. It's more of a thriller / mystery. And don't come for me in the comments, guys. It's my 31 Days of Horror. I'm watching whatever I feel like. So to sum up and give a rating of Shutter Island, directed by Martin Scorsese, I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. Just a really solid mystery thriller. It keeps you on your toes. There's plenty of twists, turns. The aesthetic and the feel of this one, set in the 1950s on this rainy island. It's just miserable there, but the mystery, as I said, just keeps you on your toes, and super engaging movie. So let me know your thoughts of Shutter Islands in the comments below, guys, and I'll see you for day number 7 of my 31 Days of Horror tomorrow. See you guys.